8 minutes late. All right, Boker Tov, Erev Purim Tov. I guess better than saying Tanis Esther Tov. All right, so today's daf is Yud Bet. Check it, b'vakasha, gentlemen. Today's daf is Yud Bet, and it's going to continue a lot with this discussion about coinage. And we are still dealing with this issue about how do we know, according to Beit Shammai, that what's the basis to say that a dinar is the minimum amount that will be married if a pruta is the minimum amount of money. So we have one explanation, which is more sort of a subjective explanation of a das, like a presumption that women would not agree to less than a dinar, which the Gemara sort of challenged. We have another explanation that since it's based on kesef in the Torah, the minimum amount is kesef tsuri, which is silver coinage. The problem being, though, part of the problem being that would not put you at a dinar, would put you at a ma'ah. And anyway, for other reasons, the Gemara says that when it says kesef generically, it's not a particular coin, and it could even include a pruta, and that the real when we say that kesef in the Torah means specific, kesef tsuri, silver coinage, and a particular type of silver coinage, that's only when the Torah gives an exact amount, 30, 50, etc. Then you have to really know the denomination. Okay, so we're back to the question of what's the basis of Beit Shammai, and now the thing we said is that basically that the answer was anyway. Why don't we just read it from the top? Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. So we'll start again from like 8 lines from the bottom of Yud Aleph on the bed. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Shamar time to Beit Shammai to Chizkiah. The reason is like Chizkiah. Damar Chizkiah Markra. The verse says the hefda by the Amavriya, sold by the father. And we want to use the selling of the Amavriya by the father as a model for the father marrying the daughter in Kiddushin, which we've seen before. The word Vefta teaches that that you redeem, the slave can redeem himself or herself in this case, and that actually that you prorate the amount that they have to pay to redeem themselves based on the amount that they've served so far, the amount of labor that they've done so far. Okay, so if that's true, so that means that you have to have the original, sale price was something that could be prorated, was more than a penny, right? Or else there's no opportunity to prorate. If you had paid a dinar for her, which is close to 200 prutas, okay. Hainu de Megara Azla at Pruta, then you could prorate there. If she'd served half the time, then you would do it. Whatever you'd pay, you do half. Okay. Whatever. At Pruta. Eliyamarta de Yavla Pruta. So but it was only paid a pruta at the beginning. So mi pruta mi megara. There's nothing to detract. There's nothing to prorate from that. So first of all, how does it prove a dinar? Right, so we'll get to that. So anyway, but and right, because it could be anything between a pruta and a dinar. So first, the Gemara has a different question. Maybe this is what the Torah says. Maybe the Torah is saying, look, if it's possible to prorate, like a dinar was paid for her to begin with, then you could prorate until there's like a pruta left. You can't go below a pruta. You'd have to minimally do a pruta to redeem her. Okay, but hey, if you try to redeem her, let's say on the last day, okay. But hey, if it was a case that only a pruta was paid for her, maybe there is no option. Meaning maybe she could still be bought for a pruta, and in that case there would be no prorating. And when the Torah discussed about prorating, that was when more than a pruta was paid for her. So before the question about how do you know it's a dinar, maybe it's one of these middle coins, the question is, okay, just because there's an option to prorate doesn't mean every case has to have that scenario. Maybe there's a case that has a pruta. So the Gemara says, no, lo sagadaitis. That doesn't make sense. Dumya di yiyud. Because we'd say the same thing we say about yiyud. Remember, when an amavriya is sold, the goal is for the master to make her his wife, to be miyayid her, for him or for his son. Now, so that's, you could say that's an option. What about a scenario where there would not be an option for yiyud? What would be a scenario? Let's say somebody sold his daughter to his I don't know, let's get a crazy example, to his father, okay? Let's say, or to his son. Okay, somebody, his son was wealthy, he wasn't, he was hard and whatever. Anyway, so now the man who has bought this girl as an Amavriya cannot marry her. It's an arayas to him. You got the case? Okay. Or if you want a case that's maybe less crazy, let's say he sold it to a man who had married this girl's sister. He sold his daughter to a man who had married this girl's sister. Okay. So you say, fine, that's a good sale. Yiyud isn't an option in that case. But we don't say that. We say if yiyud isn't an option, there's no sale. Okay. My yid, avagav di by miyad vi by lo miyad. You could say yid is just an option. You don't have to be miyad. So but we would say but nevertheless we say if yid doesn't have to take place, but it has to be possible. And if yid is not possible, lo heavy zvina zvina, it would not be a good sale. So hachanami, so we'll say the same here. If there's not an option to free her by paying by reducing the amount, it wouldn't be good. So every case has to have a case of the possibility for reducing the amount. Okay, so pruta would never be enough. You'd always have to have a higher point of sale to give the ability to reduce the amount. If that ability wasn't there, the sale wouldn't be good, and therefore it's not a pruta. So if it's not a pruta, it's got to be a demon. That still doesn't explain why not any of those middle coins. And by the way, one should point out there's a big difference between this and between yield. Yield, you could say, the point that the reason the Torah allowed a father to sell his daughter into slavery was only because of the hope and anticipation that the guy would marry her. Not that real, so that's what the whole point of the institution was. And if yield isn't on the table, then then we don't allow it. Whereas here, if he sold it for a pruta and can redeem her for a pruta, why should we not allow the sale just because you can't go lower than a pruta? But okay, the Gemara is saying no. It has to be a higher point of sale. There has to be the possibility of reducing the amount. So the Gemara says, okay, v'kiddushin isha, and that's stage number one. So we know from selling the daughter to slavery, it's more than a pruta. V'kiddushin isha lebeit shammai nafkalu miyam ivriya, and he would learn out the kiddushin of a woman from the father's sale of his daughter as a slave. So the same way by Amrivri, it's not a pruta, as we said, it had to be a higher amount so that you could reduce it. Same by marriage of a woman. So now the Gemara says, "Ema palga the dinar." So what? Say half a dinar. They must stay prutot, or say 2 prutot. Right? There's a lot of numbers between 1 and 192. Okay, I think there are 191 numbers, 190 numbers between them. Anyway, so the Gemara says, okay, no, kiven dafik teni pruta ukma dinar. Once it's more than a pruta, we're going to go to the next serious coinage, which will be a dinar. All right. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know why a ma'ah isn't serious, but okay. Look, think about this. If I say it can't be a penny, right? So when I said, all right, so fine, it's $1. Now, $1 is 100 times a penny. Well, how about a nickel? How about a dime? How about a quarter? So you could say, no, the next serious, sort of, if you, what's it called? The next serious, order of magnitude. The next serious sort of, so category is going up from a penny to $1. So you go up from a pruta to a dinar. Sure, there's something else. There's even a silver thing beside that, but that makes sense as the next stage. All right, so that's the explanation. It has to be more than a pruta, and once we know it's more than a pruta, we're going to establish it at a dinar. That's how we learn it out. Okay, that's one a new explanation for Beit Shammai. Now the Gemara says like this. Okay, Rava Amar Hainu time of the Beit Shammai. A third reason for Beit Shammai. One is the presumption women won't agree to less than a dinar. Number 2 is if it's not going to be a pruta, it's the next serious level of coinage, which is a dinar. And Rava says, you know what? Here's the reason. Shelo yubanot Yisrael kehefker. Not about the woman's subjective desire, but more about a societal concern. If we allow a woman to be purchased for a dinar, it sends a pruta. It sends a message that they're garbage, right? A penny. So it's sort of that, and it leads to a mistreatment of women, to a devaluing of women in society. So again, it's funny because again, you could argue that if it's a pruta, like I said before, that if it's a pruta, it's clearly symbolic. If it's a dinar, it's more, maybe, evokes the idea of purchase, but not really. Sometimes in contracts they say, I think I mentioned this before, in consideration for $1, I obligate myself to. It doesn't say in consideration for 1 penny. Right, you could have something that's symbolic, and still, is it a symbol? It's or also like I said yesterday, it's not, it's not the gift that matters; it's the thought that counts. Yeah, but if this is the thought you put into it, if it's so, it could be even if it's symbolic. The symbolism of a penny is a degrading type of a symbolism. The symbolism of $1, is a little bit more substantial. So that's what Rabbi says. Now, the problem still here is that that's a nice type of a sort of a societal reason, a policy reason to do it, but it doesn't explain a d'oraisa idea about why that would be. So if you look at Rashi says, Kehefker, Rashi about 6 lines down in the narrow lines, Rashi says, Liknos b'davar muat. Umidurabananhu. The Kamri La Beit Shammai. The Afki Rabbanon Kiddushin Hapchusim Dinar. So Rashi says, yeah, it's all rabbinic, and Beit Shammai basically says, Afkinu Rabbanon Kiddushin Minei. The rabbis technically a pruta should work Minat Torah, but the rabbis prevented it to working, and anything less than a dinar for the sake of protecting the status
of women. It actually wouldn't be an invalid charge.
It would be invalid because Hafkinu Rabbanon Kiddushin Minei.
Even though he wrote a ketubah later and got married.
Yeah, whatever, exactly. Okay, so again, quite fascinating that the Gemara is reading this as to protect the status of women, right? So in this, right, like if you hold it up exactly in contrast with what we said a second ago, which is Beit Shammai's reason was because they learned out from the sale of an Amma Ivriya, right? There's some aspects of the ways of thinking about marriage which is very much seems to treat a woman totally as property to be bought and sold, and here we're taking almost the exact opposite. That it's done stavka to protect the status of women. Yeah, Charlie, what do you want to say?
Well, sometimes wealthy people will take a salary of $1 a year
right.
for public service. They never take 1 cent per year.
Exactly. Okay, so now the Gemara goes on. So that's Beit Shammai. Now, back to Beit Hillel. Beit Hillel means Pruta. Now we're back to Beit Hillel's Pruta. Now, Pruta, remember we said, was 1/8 of an Isar HaItalki. There's your Isar. Okay, so Rav Yosef Flameimar, Pruta Koldehu. Rav Yosef thought we'd say a Pruta, whatever its value might be in a given society at a given time, even if it fluctuates in value. Amalei Abaye said, "Va'alaktani kami Pruta echad mishmana bisari talki." Abaye said, 1 minute. The Mishnah went out of its way to say 1/8 of an Isar. So clearly, of an Italian one, to be very specific, clearly to tell you that it's not something that you go, at any society at any given time. Maybe that was telling you at the time of Moshe. One imagines there was no Italian Isars at the time of Moshe. It's funny the Gemara didn't say Bidoro Shel Rebbe, but again, we're presumably learning it out from a pasuk in the Torah. Okay, I mean, the Torah says kesef, we mean minimum kesef. So maybe that's what was minimum in the time of Moshe. Okay, that's like the original amount. But nowadays, basically now we would go to whatever has that analogous weight for people, like the minimum coinage for people. Again, it's particularly funny since the Gemara is dealing within the possibility that there isn't a fixed amount, that it basically means whatever is the minimum amount that's considered money in a given society. So it didn't have to be Shel Moshe. Moshe could have been a different point. It really is funny. The Gemara didn't say, why didn't the Gemara say, B'doro Shel Rebbe? Right? Because the whole point is that we don't have to say it's the same as was in the time of Moshe. That the Mishnah is telling for its time what the minimum coinage is, and the halacha really is, though, for any society and for any time will determine whatever a pruta is. Okay, so that's the point. Maybe the Mishnah doesn't lock us in. So the Gemara says, no. When Rav Dimi came from Mitzvah, he said, Shir Rebbe Simai b'doro kama hi pruta echad mishmona b'isar italki. So Rebbe Simai assessed in his generation based on this idea of 1/8 of an Italian Isar. What does that mean? The way Rashi explains it means that somebody married a woman with an Isar, and Rebbe Simai wanted to determine was she really married or not. And what he had to do was he had to assess is the Isar that she was married with, not Isar, excuse me, a pruta. He married this woman with a pruta, and he had to determine if she was married, and he had to assess, is this pruta in our generation still worth 1/8 of an Italian Isar? So he was using the standard in the Mishnah to determine whether the Isar, whether the pruta of his time was considered a pruta or not.
So how much is it?
So I don't know. So you see, it's, I don't know, 5 cents, 10 cents, certainly $1 is way more. Okay, anyway, so you see you see that you go by, you don't go by it's not a subjective, or it's not a standard that changes based on circumstances or based on society and time. It's an objective standard. Similarly, when Ravin came, Amar, he said, Reb Dostav, Reb Yanai, Reb Oshaya, these 3 great rabbis, Shiru kama have pruta echad mishisha b'isar italki. Now this is interesting. It's against the Mishnah. We're going to get back to it, but nevertheless, the point for us is they were using an objective standard. A man married a woman with a pruta, and they wanted to determine was she really married or not, and had to decide was it more or less than 1/6 of an isar. So you see, a pruta is not, we don't say any pruta in any society is enough. It has to meet an objective, consistent standard. Now we're going to get to what their debate is based on, but first we're making this point that it does not change based on society and time. There's an objective, consistent standard. 1 minute. I'm going to Rav Yosef Ihachi. 1 minute. I got a problem. If we're saying that a pruta always is an eighth or maybe a sixth of an Italian isar, explain to me the following Mishnah. Hainu de Tanina, how do we teach the following thing? Actually, I think it's not a Mishnah. It's something in the, it is a Mishnah. Okay. So Tzevach Shov, or actually no, it's a what do you call it? It's a sifra. Okay, we teach the following in the sifra. Tzevach Shov kama prutas b'shnei slaim. Now, if somebody is nene, does meila, derives benefit from hekdesh, they have to bring an asham. And the Torah says the asham is asham. How much is the asham worth? Kesef shkalim, 2 shekel. Okay, a shekel is a selah. Okay, now here the point that the sifra is making is, you benefited, you got a pruta's worth of benefit, a penny's worth of benefit. You're going to have to bring a korban worth 2 shekel. Like, so look at how weighty your sin was and how disproportional it is. So we want to point out how much more your korban is going to cost than how much you, how much you benefited. Now, a shekel is 768, right, prutas. So basically your korban is going to cost about 1,500, 1,550 roughly, whatever, 1,500 times the amount that you benefited. Okay, now, but he says, but 1 minute. I don't understand, because look at what the Sifra says. Tzevach Shov, go and figure out kama prutas b'shnei slaim. How many prutas? Oh, it's 2 shekel because of shkalim. Okay, so this would have it be 15. Right, I did it. 1,500. Right. Okay. So Yoser Malpayim, more than 2,000. Now, 1 minute, we just did the math and we only got 1,500 or and change. So the Gemara says, Hashta Apayim lo havin, it's not even 2,000. Yes, Apayim Karilu, you're calling it more than 2,000? So from the fact that this Sifra calls it more than 2,000, you see that the value of prutas can change. That's his argument, that the Sifra must have been dealing with a pruta that was worth much less than this 1/8 here. Okay, so. Like we read in that Tosos yesterday. Anyway, he says, look, prutas don't have a consistent value. This Sifra thinks it's more than 2,000, and it's really only about 1,500. So the Gemara says, Amar Lahu, Hausaba, so a certain old person said to him, no, Ana Taninala, I taught that Braita. And here's the way I have the gears of the Braita. Karav La Payim. It's more than 2,000. It's close to 2,000. What's it? So, what do you mean close to 2,000? Do the math. Alpha v'chamesh ma'ah, it's 1,500 v'plusim v'shisa, and 36. Okay, 1,536. You can sort of see that, right? 14, 13, 5, 2, right? 1,536. So, hudahavian. So that's not close to 2,000. It's almost 500 away. It says no. Since it's over 1,500, so you round to the nearest 1,000. Okay, so 1,536, round it to the nearest 1,000. That's close to 2,000. All right. Anyway,
big enough for budgeting purposes.
Exactly. All right. So anyway, so we solved that problem. But the point was to prove, is pruta always the same value? Okay, and that seemed to say no, but we solved it. Now let's get back to this issue. We are going to say there's a consistent amount that we determine halachically a pruta about, which does not change based on society and time. But there's still this debate about 1/6 versus 1/8 of an isar. Let's try to figure out what that's based on. Gufa. Let's go back and look at that debate. Because a Ravi Amashir Rabbi Amashir Rabbi Yisai Rabbi Yonai Rabbi Hoshaya Kami Puta Echad Mishisha B'Isar Italki. So Amalei Abayil Ravdimi Nema At V'Rabin. But maybe this debate between you and Ravin about whether it's 1/8 or 1/6. The plugs at the Hani Tanai Kamiflagi. It's the same debate as we find amongst these tonight. The Tani we turn the price up. Pruta Shamu Chachamim, the pruta that the rabbi spoke about, Echem Mishmona B'Isar Yitalki, 1/8 of Italian Isar. Now, we're going to do the whole math. Sheish Me'ah Kesef, dinar. Okay, a dinar is 6, right? You see, I have 32 here and 192 here. Okay, so this is one, if we're measuring Ma'ah here, right? It's 1 Ma'ah to 6 of these, right? Everybody here with me with math? Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, you see, this is 32, this was 192 in prutas, 1/6 ratio, okay? So there are 6 me'ah, it's sort of working backward, okay? But there are 6 me'ah for every dinar, okay? Me'ah shnei pundion. A ma'ah is 2 pundion. Okay. Pundion shnei isarim. A pundion is 2 isar. Right. I already have this sort of here. Okay. And in isar shnei musmasim. We don't have that. Mismas shnei kuntrakim. Kuntrak shnei putot. Okay. Anyway, there's some smaller coinages within here. There's a nickel and a dime and whatever. But anyway, it's a 1 to 8. Okay. So this is exactly the thing is what we have, and you basically do this, you do this times 6 times 2, whatever, and it's a 1 to 192 ratio. Okay, fine. Nimsa pruta echad mishmona b'isar italki. Now, really, the only part you needed at the end was when it went from an isar. It said, it's twice of this and twice of this and whatever, twice of that. So it's 1/8. A pruta is 1/8 of an Italian isar. So that position says it's 1/8 of an Italian isar. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel has a different set of coinages. You have to imagine living in the system where you have competing systems of coinage going around.
Like different countries, Some they use the euro or the dollar.
Yeah, but I don't think it was only that. I think it was mamish like same time, same place. Anyway, like there was a local coinage and whatever. Anyway, Shlosha Hadresin Lime'ah. Okay, now he's going to say actually there are. I agree to this 1 to 6 ratio. Okay, let's sort of do it in the opposite direction. 1 dinar is 6 me'ah. That I agree. But then there's going to be something called a hadras or whatever here. And we're figuring out how much a dinar is worth. And there are 3, that's a 3 to 1. So it's going to be 18 hadrasim, right? 3 hadras for a me'ah. Shnei hanatzim lahadras. So now we have a hanat. So there's going to be 2 to there. So it's 36. We're figuring out how many, in a dinar, right? So there's 6 ma'ahs in a dinar. This is a 3 to 1 ratio. There are 18 hadrasim. There are 36 hanatzim. Lahadras. Shnei shmanim lahanatz. Okay, so then there's this, shaman. I don't know. Anyway, we're up to 72. That's 2 to 1. Shnei prutzot l'shamanim. And then we get to pruta, where is 144. Okay, so according to this, the relevance of this is, people were sort of seeing what I was doing here. The relevance of this is, according to this, there's 144 prutos to a dinar, not 192 prutos to a dinar. Okay? Now, if you wanted to figure out, so what? Now, yes. So, nimsa pruta echad mishisha b'isar ha'italki. So, if we're assuming the ratio of isar to dinar is the same, this is a 1 to 24 ratio, right? See that 24, 8 times 24 is, 8 times 25 would give you 200, right? So this is a 1 to 24 ratio, okay? So if there are 24 isar for a dinar, and now according to this, a dinar is 144 putot, okay? So 124 into 144 is it's a 6 prutot for an isar. All right. So this person has, according to this figuring, we've got 6 prutot to an isar. So you see, he says that seems to be a debate. Are there 6 prutot to an isar, or are there 8 prutot to an isar? Okay, one wonders how could this be a debate? Like the government must know. There must be a reality out there. Okay. Anyway, so lema demarmar ketanakama of Ravin damar kabrim gamliel. Let's say this is exactly your debate, which could be fine. It makes sense, but who wants to be like a das yachid? So Amar Alei, he said no. Bain didi, bain de Ravin, I'll leave it to Tanakama. We're both agreeing with the Tanakama, who says 1 to 8. So how could I said 1 to 6. How could I be saying 1 to 8? Velo kasha. Had the ikor isurei, had the zul isurei. Okay, basically what he is saying is the following. Now, I can't figure that. I can only figure this out if we assume that a isar and a pruta were made from different. An isar and pruta were made from different metals. Okay, I actually looked it up. The original isar, if they think they know, is something. They think it's something called an as, which actually was like a very widespread coinage in the Roman realm. Actually, and it was based on a Greek coin. So that's echad mishmona isar italki. Anyway, the original one was bronze actually, and a pruta was copper. So actually, you could have 3 metals going on here. Okay, although it does say that by the time of the by the time of the Mishnah was being written, they had already made this into copper. So it was all the same metal. So what I'm about to say doesn't make sense. But anyway, I can't understand the Gemara. The only way I'm going to understand what the Gemara is saying is if they were of different metals. Here's what the Gemara is going to assume: the amount of prutas to dinar is stable. Okay. It's always 192 prutas to a dinar. So again, you'd have to, meaning. I guess what's challenging me is I'm assuming that the coinage is always based on the weight of the precious metal, and it's not just a nominal amount. And actually, from the little reading I did last night on Hebrew Wikipedia, which is a great source, it actually seems that even in the time of the Roman Republic, coins could have a nominal value which was higher than their pure metal value. So that might also be how this makes sense. But for now, anyway.
Wow.
I
didn't know it was that early.
Yeah. So anyway, assuming that there's a fixed ratio of 192 prutas to a dinar, the Gemara is going to assume that that ratio is fixed. But what is not fixed is the ratio of the isar to the pruta. That can fluctuate based on the value of the isar. Okay. So here's what it's going to say. Where were we? Bain Rabbi no liba to Tanakama. We all agree like to the Tanakama, 192 prutas to a dinar. Velo kasha. Had the ikar isure, had the zul isure. Is the isar, does that have a higher value or a lower value in a given time in society or whatever? And by the way, the isar's value did fluctuate radically over time. Like there was a time where it was basically worth like I think like a 20th of what its original worth was. Anyway, had the ikar isure, kum esrim v'arba bezuza. If the isar is of a higher value, then there are 24 isarim to a dinar. A dinar is a zuz. Okay, so this is a 1 to 24 ratio, right? 8 to 92 is a 1 to 24 ratio, and when it's a 1 to 24 ratio, this is a 1 to 8 ratio. Because again, the pruta to dinar is stable. Okay, so when this is 1 to 24, then that's 1 to 8. 1 minute. Hadazul, if however the isar is of is devalued at a particular time, is of a lesser value, plus in vitrain bezuza, then this would be a 1 to 32 ratio. Then this would be 6, right? So 6, right, is a 1 to 32. So what we're saying is a pruta's value never changes. A pruta's value is stable vis-a-vis the dinar, which would be also, I guess, be a very stable value. So if I'm going to describe it as 1/8 of an isar, and somebody else is going to describe it as 1/6, we're not really debating the value of the pruta. What we're really debating is the value of the isar. The isar's value fluctuates, but the dinar's value and the pruta's value are relatively stable. Okay, so that's his answer. Yes, Michael.
So my question is then everyone's agreeing though that you couldn't just textualize this in more modern times, take out a penny and say, everyone can leave because a penny is less than a pruta. That's what they're saying. You can't use the smallest whatever.
Exactly. You can't use the smallest coin of the realm. It always has to be the value of the pruta. And what we're saying is the value of the pruta basically being figured as 100 and 192nd of the value of a dinar. Now the question is, by value, do we mean the buying value of that, or do we mean the precious metal value of that? Right. So that's a whole question. Anyway, I would also say, talking about devaluing, I want to say something, which is that, oh, look, that's still up there from 2 months ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask
so
you
this is actually an excellent point to make. So I remember that dinar is a zuz, and a ksuva is 200 zuz. Now, 200 zuz used to be enough to support yourself basically for like a year, or maybe even 2 years, okay? So that's 200 zuz. Now, how much was 200 zuz? If you know, our current ksuvas don't say, they have says 200 zuz, but they have matayim zekukim. And now of kesef, saruf, of pure silver. A zakuk is a much, much larger amount than a zuz. And basically what happened was in the Middle Ages, 200 zuzim were worth almost nothing. And the woman was therefore not being protected by the ksuva. So what they did is they established as a takana that all ktuvot, every chassan has to basically assign the dowry value at 100 zakuk and the tosefet value at 100 zakuk. So a woman was promised 200 zakuk, which was much, much more than 200 zuz. Now, these are weights, and actually there's a very precise weight that we have going back to ancient times, which is essentially like barley weight or whatever. Whatever it is. Anyway, it's a very precise weight. So actually, the 200 zuz is a measure of a weight of silver. Okay, so the presumption is it's not based on buying power; it's based on the precious metal value, and it's based on a weight of silver. By the time of the Middle Ages, or by nowadays, 200 zuz is approximately $600. Okay, 200 zuz, which means that a zuz is $3. Okay, and so which means that a pruta is about Do the math. About a penny and a half. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
2 pennies. Okay,
Yeah.
so therefore, whereas 200 zukuk is $27,000 roughly in today's price of silver. Okay, so that's the 200 zukuk of the ksuva is 27,000. But that used to be, but zuz used to be a lot more. Zuz used to be approximately that. So nowadays, based on the value of a dinar, which is about $2, which is about $3, this value of a dinar, okay, a pruta is about 2 cents. Okay, but it could have been
put your 2 cents in.
put your 2 cents in, but it could have been right that what do you call it? That originally it was closer to $2 or closer to $1. Okay, so it might have been originally $1, but we don't go by the buying power.
And
We
there's
go by
some-
precious metal value. So it's anyway. So when I say to somebody, does it look like it's worth a pruta? I don't give the exact amount, but if somebody were to push me, I'd say $1 because clearly a pruta nowadays is much less than $1.
But
But
they're saying-
originally it might have been closer to $1 or $2.
And they're saying this is not just a debate for Kesef for Kiddushin. It's applied for everything else. Like meaning these same
Right.
positions.
Presumably, that is correct. Presumably,
we don't
you're
have
gonna
it also,
right.
which is
That
why
seems
they
to be
say
the
how
most
much is
case.
silver.
Anytime we discuss pruta, we do not mean the smallest coin of the realm. We mean a pruta. Although nowadays, again, that is close to a penny. It's maybe 2 pennies, but originally it was probably closer to $1.
But I can't take 5 shekel and then put in my firstborn son. I mean, I can't take 5
Correct.
Israeli shekel.
Correct.
I gotta
Correct.
see.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah.
How much weight is the zukot?
A zakuk? Yeah, and I'd have to check. I mean, but yeah.
So what are we writing the ketubah now?
We right. You get the 200 zuz for your mohar, and 100 zakuk for the price we just assessed the dowry at, which means that that's the price that if they get divorced, he's going to have to give her back because he's declaring that her dowry is worth 100 zakuk, and 100 zakuk for tosefet, which is the additional amount that he's agreeing to give, even though he's not obligated. So bottom line is, what she would take out in the case of divorce would be 200 zakuk. Okay, all right.
And what do
So,
you mean by net? We go by the precious metal value, not the market value.
meaning we don't say how much could a dinar have bought in the time of Chazal. First of all, they're talking like it's consumer price index. Like, first of all, like, what do you mean bought? We're talking about how much food, how much bread, how much meat, how much real estate, right? And then you try to assess, well, what's the equivalent buying power nowadays? But that's a very hard measure, and it's a different measure. We basically go by like precious metal value. Yeah.
Yeah, the value of gold and silver plummeted in the 16th century when the Spanish colonized the New World and opened the mines in Mexico.
But this was already in like the 12th or 13th century.
Yeah, and I was wondering, was there any adjustment made in early modern times?
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so let's continue. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Now we move on to a slightly different point. We don't have to worry about all these numbers. Okay. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Bitmara, if a man married a woman with a date, afilu omed kor tamarim b'dinar, even if an entire kor, which is a huge quantity of tamarim, are going for a dinar, which would mean that presumably there's more than 200 dates in a kor. Okay, so so that means that it's clear that a date is worth less than a pruta. Nevertheless, mikudeshet, she's married. Why? It's based on the market rate of tamarim. It's clearly worth less than a pruta. Maybe there's some country somewhere off in Madai, somewhere at Paras and Madai, somewhere halfway around the world. Maybe this goes for more than a pruta. Maybe this goes for a pruta, which is so funny because now we said, okay, pruta is a fixed amount, but when you do it with something that's not money but some object, how do you assess its value? So, of course, we would have assumed you assess it based on the value here, right? Sure. And Shmuel's introducing this wild idea that if somewhere on the globe it's worth a pruta, maybe that is enough to give it significance. Okay, so let's take a look. The equivalent of a pruta, and according to Shmuel, you would never be able to assess that something was or wasn't the equivalent of a pruta because you'd always have to be worried about what's it worth in Madai. So the Gemara says no. Lo kasha, habi kedushay vada, habi kedushay safek. Yes, what Beit Hillel is saying is, if it's worth a pruta here in this locale, then she's vada married. If it's not worth a pruta in this locale, she's safek married. So we always thought Beit Hillel was saying if it's not worth a pruta, she's vada not married. It's saying no. It's saying if it's not worth a pruta, she's safek married. If it is worth a pruta, she's vada married. Right? This is a huge chumrah, right? All right, because every case is a suffix Kiddushin. Who gave the aktish bezavda the ordi? A certain man married a woman with a bundle. Rashi says of I don't know, cloth, of pieces of cloth, shmatas essentially. Yosef Shimi Barchia coming to Rav become ayin bas. So he was sitting in front of Rav and he was looking into the case. If it was worth a pruta, she's married. If not, not. So the Gemara is now again. If a pruta was a penny or 2 pennies, it's hard to imagine it was less than that. But if it was $1, you can imagine something like that would be worth less than $1. So the Gemara says, pruta low. How even if it was a lot of pruta, how could you say it's not a concern? But even less than a pruta, it's suffix Kiddushin. Lo kasha, Kiddushin vaday Kiddushin suffix. Okay, and so what? You want to know, is she definitely married or is she suffix married? So now the Gemara is introducing that every case of less than a pruta would still turn her into a suffix married. Another story. We'll see if we end this way. A man married a woman with a stone of a one of those colored stones. I don't know what how does it define what it is? What?
I said a mood ring.
Mood ring, yeah, something like that.
Here's a shaish shahor,
what?
Black marble.
Yeah, well, you know how you go sometimes and they sell all these colored stones and you get you get a whole a bag full of them for $5. Yeah. So you have these things, they look pretty, they're colored stones, but and one of them is not worth a lot. We're not talking about, diamonds and emeralds. Okay, exactly. Okay, so he married a woman with his stone. Okay. Yosef of Chizav Kamashayla, he was estimating. If it's a Shavar she's married, not. So the Gemara says, doesn't Shmuel say that we doubt that it's still suffix Kiddushin? So finally, the Gemara here puts the brakes on Shmuel. The Gemara says, Rav Chizda lo savarle to Shmuel, rather than saying the alternative would have been suffix Kiddushin, and Rashi says the reasons why we didn't say that, but I won't go into it. Anyway, it says, you know what, Rav Chizda doesn't hold of Shmuel. Okay. Amrle Ame. So now the mother, or some have the Girsa Ema, the mother of the woman who was given this thing, said, "Vahu Yoma Kadsha Havi Beishvei Pruta." So now we've established. Listen, we don't know the Shmuel. If it's less than a Pruta, she's Vare Ein Mekudeshes. Now the mother's apparently of course the question that I'm waiting for somebody to ask me is, why doesn't he just now give her, if they both still want the marriage, why doesn't he just now give her another thing that's worth the pruta? So Rashi says maybe one of them wants to back out, but Rashi also describes the case similarly, that you already accepted Kiddushin from another man. Okay, exactly. So anyway, so the mother now says, either the groom's mother or the bride's mother says, on the wedding day, I am telling you that the market, I saw him go to the store and buy it or whatever, it was worth more than a pruta. Okay, you don't have to figure out now. You're trying to assess what its value is today. I'm telling you, when they got married, it was worth less than, not less. It was worth a pruta, and she's vade married. Okay,
it doesn't make sense how much you paid for it necessarily.
All right, that's fine. Worth, right? Fine, it's worth. Yeah. It's what it's worth. Okay, so we've assumed we're putting Shmuel aside. If it's less than a pruta, vade not married, a pruta vade yes married, and now he's trying to determine what's its value today. And the mother is saying, "What do you care what the value is today? At the time of the marriage, I'm telling you, it was worth a pruta. Havi beishvei pruta. Amr la." So he said to her, "Lavko kaminach to asus leah basra." So this makes it clear that there was a second guy in the picture. You are not believed to make her forbidden to the second guy. Okay, meaning why? That's just it's a testimony of one person, of a woman who. But this isn't Isurim. This is a Rayas, a Shashish, and so on. And he basically, anyway, and he says, I'm dismissing that. You're just one witness. So one woman's testimony is not given the same weight. We're dismissing that. Okay. Now, what's his evidence that we can dismiss that? And the point is, it impacts other people. You read Neil Adis. It's also why it's not just Isurim. It impacts the second man. Right, so it's not just a question of can I, a conscious issue which really just affects me. Okay, so anyway, no, it doesn't matter. But you're taking away, you're challenging the fact, his rights.
So you're saying the first guy doesn't need to give a get
then? If we determine it was vade, if we determine it was vade less than a pruta, then he would say, right. That would be the interesting thing, and we're going to see that if the assessment right now is that it's vade less than it was vade less than a pruta. And he determines, based on the information he has at his disposal, that it's less than a pruta now, and he's assuming that it was less than a pruta at the time of the marriage, because that's really what matters. Right. But that's the assessment he arrives at. And this mother says, no, I'm telling you it was a pruta, and he totally dismisses her. He's going to come to the conclusion that Vade was not married to the first guy, does not need a get, and is Vade married to the second guy. Right. So exactly. So you're right. It is being lenient. He is completely dismissing the testimony. Now, on what basis? He says, Lav Hainu di Yehudis Tvasayud Rabbi Chia. It's similar to the story of Yehudis, the wife of Rabbi Chia. Davos Latzar Leda. She would have a lot of anguish in childbirth, okay? And she had a lot of twins, Rashi points out. Amarle, so she said to her husband one of these times when she had all of this anguish, like she thought, even like this sense about like, what is she doing? Like, what did she do to be suffering this much? So she said, what I think this is because of? Because I'm really aimed, because my mother told me, that your father actually had married me off to another man when I was underage. So here she was married to Rabbi Chia, right? This is one of the major Amoraim. And all of a sudden, 10 years into marriage, after she's having this pains in childbirth, she says, you know what? Maybe this is because I'm really married to another man. Because my mother told me that my father had married me off to another man when I was a baby. So what happened? So he says, Amar lo. So her husband said to her, Rabbi Chia, your mother has no believability, that she should make you forbidden to me. Okay, so that testimony has absolutely no halachic weight. Okay, it's not two witnesses, etc. No halachic weight. So here too, no halachic weight. Even though you'll say, oh my God, he's sleeping with an Eishes Ish. Isn't he concerned that his wife is married to another man? No. Those, we completely dismiss it. We assess it based on the evidence we have at our disposal. There's actually a story I got to tell you. There's actually a joke, but I'll tell you that one later. But there's a story that a man said, somebody told me this story about the guy he knew. The rabbi was being Masader Kiddushin. And under the chuppah, the chassan says to the rabbi, he says, this is the ring that my grandmother, gave me. And my grandmother said it was very, very important that I use this ring and that I show it to the rabbi, that the rabbi should look at it. So the rabbi takes the ring and he looks at it, and he looks on the inside, inscribed on the inside, it says Mamzer. So this is how the grandmother was dealing with her guilt about this situation, right? So leaving this time bomb to go off. Wow. Anyway, so I said to the guy, so what did the rabbi do? So he said, he did the only thing he could do. He fainted, so, which was a way of buying him time. And then they rushed him off or whatever. And then he made a phone call. So anyway, the answer was that has no halachic weight. You just ignore it. So.
What was it that you said? The mother of the groom came to him right before the chuppah.
Yeah.
Said it was rough. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And and you said that she said, I have to tell you that I have in this child. The husband is
yeah.
And he said, I don't believe you.
Right. Yeah, so that's basically it. We dismiss the testimony. Now there, of course, it would only be negative. Here, and here too, she's already married to Rabbi Chia. Here it's a little different. He hadn't yet started to live with either man, it seems like. And the question was, which man was her husband? But nevertheless, we just dismiss the testimony.
I'm understanding why we don't say Eidech Hanem, meaning this woman, this mother is saying,
just what we say,
the other guy.
I understand, but Ein Davar Shebe'erva Pochos Mishnayim means that things that have to do with personal status are not assessed as normal Yisurim. Okay, and also again, it also has to do with that's the basic.
But if there were two witnesses that said, "Yeah, I was at the store when he purchased it, and I saw the receipt, and it was for $1.50," then they would be believed.
Yeah, and then we're going to get to that case. Okay, there's other points too. The basic point is that it's Davar Shebe'erva, but the other related points also say is that it's not it's just between me and whether this is an avera or not an avera. It has implications for other people and other people's sort of rights and so on, and therefore it also puts it into the more standard category of eidos. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Okay, so we're not done with this case. So we've dismissed Shmuel. We've dismissed this mother testifying. Amalei Rabbanan Rav Chizda. Now the rabbi said to Rav Chizda, why are you going to allow this woman and say that it was not a good marriage? There are witnesses over in Edis, some foreign country, Madai, that were there at the time, and the story is that they are saying that it was worse a pruta. So it's like 8 EPA, but at least we're telling you there is evidence to be had that it was worth a pruta. So he says, you know what? Hashem Yalole come on. I don't know, so what? They're not here now. You snooze, you lose. Okay. Love Hainu Rabbi Chanina, and I'll give you the story with Rabbi Chanina. So the witnesses are over. So this was a case about a woman who was taken as the daughters of Shmuel, actually, who were taken as captives, and basically they said that they were not. Yeah, whatever. And they basically were said, I think it's anyway. They basically said that they were, that they were not forced to have sex, and therefore they were allowed to marry other men. But the halacha is that that's only because there were not witnesses that saw them being taken captive. If there was direct evidence that they were taken captive, they wouldn't be believed to say that they had not been raped. So somebody said in that case, but there are witnesses. There's witnesses somewhere that saw, and the answer was, so what? So there are witnesses somewhere else. That's going to make them us or here. Like if the witnesses aren't here, we're not going to pay attention to it. So Abai and Rava, so that was his response. Now there's a difference, and Abai and Rava lo sirle lahad Rav Chisda. They did not agree with Rav Chisda's psak that we could just dismiss those witnesses. Just because we're lenient by a shvuya, now some have these take out the next few words, which is hard to explain what they're doing here. But let me take it out for it. If we're going to be lenient by a shvuya, even if there are witnesses that a woman was taken captive, we don't know that she was raped. So in that case, to dismiss the fact that there are witnesses that saw her taken captive, but even that is not direct evidence that they're usher. Right? It just means, we're just going to presume and we won't believe them to say otherwise. But that's only a rabbinic type of a concern. So we could dismiss it if the witnesses aren't here. But here, we're saying that there are witnesses that know that she's married to the first guy. How could we not be concerned about that? Okay, so if there's knowledge that there are witnesses somewhere else, we have to be concerned about it. Okay, that now. Tosas, by the way, says that it's too extreme that Shmuel, that Rav Chisda here would not be concerned about these witnesses. So take a look at Tosas. He says, Va'ika Sadi B'idis or B'uris. He says, Ein lefaresh shenechush l'shema ika Sadi. No, the second one. Don't be saying maybe there are witnesses. Clearly, the case is not just hypothetically. Who knows? Maybe there are witnesses. It sounds like there's something concrete, some knowledge that there are witnesses. On the one hand, you can't say we just always are concerned. On the other hand, you can't say that it's like people know that there are witnesses, that they heard witnesses say that there was a Shaveh Pruta. Because in that case, there would be no way Rav Chisda could be so lenient in that case. Just as logically, we have to find like a middle case here. Either extreme doesn't make sense. So we don't know for sure. There's a rumor that there are witnesses who know that it was a Shaveh Pruta. Okay, so Tosfos says it's too hard to imagine that if there's like people say, I heard witnesses say that it was a Shaveh Pruta, that we could dismiss that. But if there's a rumor, then he says that Rav Chisda is willing to dismiss, and Abai and Rava are not willing to dismiss. Okay, so now the Gemara goes on. Okay, that line, by the way, that by a shvuya, the menavla nafsha gabi shavai, she makes herself degrading by the captor. How is that relevant is not exactly clear. It could mean that just because the captor maybe took advantage of her, it doesn't mean he raped her, or it could whatever. Maybe it means that she'll make herself that the captor won't want to have sex with her. Anyway, it's a hard line. But the basic point is we're lenient by shvuya, which is D'Rabbanan. That doesn't mean we're going to be lenient by a case of Eishes Ish. Okay, so now the Gemara goes on. There was some, in Surah, there were some descendants from that family, from the family that Rav Chisda basically let this woman marry the second guy, and then they had kids and grandkids and whatever, and there were some descendants from that. Upiyushu Rabbanan Mina. And the rabbis, meaning the comment, the Hamonam would, their status was they followed the authority of Rav Chisda. It was considered that she was okay, the kids were okay, they married in with the family and so on. But the rabbis were a little bit more machmir not to marry into the family. The lav mishum, basically because the Safek Mamzer. The lav mishum disrir lahu de Shmuel, not because they're concerned about Shmuel that even less than a pruta, we have to be concerned that it's worth a pruta somewhere in Medinas Hayam. El mishum disrir lahu kabai v'rava. No, but because that there were witnesses, that there was at least a rumor that there were witnesses that knew for sure that it was a Shaveh pruta. Okay, so the basic conclusion of the Gemara, besides that it's a little bit disturbing, this idea of having these double standards, right, which is issues that we have today too, like, but okay, that we're going to find even more of as we do Maseches, Kiddushin, about, different types of standards by Yochsin. But anyway, the basic conclusion of the Gemara is that if it's clear it's less than a pruta here, we're not worried about what it might be worth elsewhere. But if there's some question of is it worth a pruta here, or certainly a case where there's like a knowledge that there are witnesses who might have that information or whatever, we cannot just so easily dismiss that information. Let's just keep on going. Okay. A man married a woman with like a stick of myrtle, beshuka, in the marketplace. What's the story with this case?
You mean what? Is it worth a pruta?
Yeah. Shalach is it worth a pruta? Shalach nagde kirav, give him lashes like Rav. V'tzarich gita kishmuel, and have her. But he needs to get like, meaning clearly it's not worth a pruta. He picked up a stick off the ground. Clearly it's not worth a pruta. But we pass like Shmuel. He's concerned with Shmuel. Maybe it's worth a pruta in Madai. So you need to have a get me suffix like Shmuel. This Shmuel is so much tsaris, right? Every single case needs a get me suffix. So number one, like Shmuel, we have to give a get me suffix. Maybe it's worth a pruta in Madai. But by the way, another halacha here is we have to give him lashes. Why do we have to give him lashes? The Rav gave lashes on the Mekadesh Beshuka, somebody who marries a woman in the marketplace. This is very important, because this is basically saying marriage is a serious institution. You don't get into it without significant planning and forethought. And so even though halachically a marriage is binding if it's done spontaneously, you gave it, there was witnesses, she accepted it or whatever. Nevertheless, there was Rav wanted to prevent that. Like you need to go through a process of forethought and treating it seriously. You don't do it stam in the marketplace. 1 minute. Somebody who does Kiddushin with sex, we'll talk about that like later, maybe tomorrow. Or somebody who does Kiddushin without any engagement period for the same reason. That's very similar to the issue about in the marketplace. Now, the issue about Mekadesh B'biyah might be similar because that basically is sending a message. Like the whole idea of 2 stages of Kiddushin and Isuin is saying that this is not just all about about like having sex. This is like a commitment and that you're entering into that has is much more than just the sexual life, and it's sort of is something that endures. It's a contract, it's binding. So it comes the Kiddushin becomes a reality before the sex becomes the reality, right? So marriages have trouble. There are times that they have trouble, and that even when sometimes there's some physics, like they're not as intimate and they're not as close or whatever. It doesn't mean the marriage all of a sudden disappears instantaneously. Like you got to try to work through the hard times. So a lot of that is created through this sense that you start with Kiddushin and then you move on to Bia. You don't start with Bia. That makes it all like about that. That makes it like something that doesn't have that sense of like commitment that's independent of that. So that's part of the problem of Kiddushin. Technically, it's binding, but it's it's not. It sends the wrong message about what this whole what marriage is about. Without engagement, without a process of engagement.
You mean like those cases where who wants to make wife for a day? We had that.
Or the cases we had earlier in the Gemara. There are cases like that.
It was Rav who was the rabbi who did the temporary marriage.
Okay, so that's a good question.
That was my question.
I don't know. We also had cases in the Gemara. Remember that a woman said, "Give me to drink," and the guy says, "I'll give you some wine. You marry me with this wine." She says, "Just give me to drink." So that would, but those are all good reasons why you don't want to be doing it b'shuk and below shiduche. So you want it to be treated seriously. Okay, V'al, in addition, let's just go a little bit more to finish this. The mevatel gita, somebody who's mevatel a get, right, which had to do with the whole case in Gittin. Now, Rashi says it's even if you told the shaliach, we're just afraid that the shaliach won't listen to you or whatever. Tosu says, no. It's when you were mevatel it not in the presence of the shaliach. So that's a case where, the woman could get in serious trouble if that happens. So he was going to give lashes if you did that. Now, the Masr Mudad Gita, somebody who's being compelled by Beis Din to give a get, but he still wants to subvert Beis Din. So before he gives the get, gives testimony to witnesses that he's not giving it of his own free will. So clearly it's going to be creating a lot of trouble there. Or the Beis Din sent somebody, a court officer, to go, call him to court. And what he does is he beats up the court officer. He physically or verbally abuses him, which is a way of rejecting rabbinic authority. Okay. There's somebody who allowed a nidui to rest on him for 30 days, right? Because the whole idea is that shows a disregard. The nidui was a form of rabbinic censure. And if you don't feel you have to do anything about it to try to, reconcile, to try to whatever, you're dismissive of it. We got to take things to the next step. Okay. And we got to give you physical lashes. Okay, and a son-in-law that lives in his mother-in-law's house, because then they'll maybe suspect there'll be questions about, is he actually sleeping with his mother-in-law? The dyer in, now the question doesn't mean mother-in-law that there's no father-in-law, the father is dead or divorced or whatever, not exactly clear. The dyer in chali flow, only if he's living there, not if he's just passing by, not if he just visits on a regular basis. So the Gemara says, is that true? There was a son-in-law that regularly visited by the house of the door of his mother-in-law. And Rav Sheshes gave him lashes. So you see, even just visiting on a regular basis is a problem. No, the Gemara says, no. There was concrete suspicions. That wasn't just a stam case. People were rumoring that he was having an affair with his mother-in-law.
Way to you say, I don't want to go to your mother.
Right. Nardai Amri. Now Nardai says, let's just finish this point. Nardai Amri, Bekulu lo menagid Rav. Rav would not give lashes on any of those cases. Ella al demekadish bebiya below shiduche. Only two things combined: Kiddushin with sex and without shidduchin beforehand. It's like right on the spot. You're so eager to have sex that you just, they came with nothing beforehand, and it's all about the sex. It's not about a serious entering into a institution of marriage. The Iga Amri vafilu b'shidduche nami. Even Kiddush Bia with like an engagement period would be inappropriate, mishum pritzusa, because that would just be considered to be like, too, like pritzusa is the opposite of tzniut, too immodest, too immoral to sort of make it, to just make it all about sex. I want to just read very quickly one line from Tosfos, two lines from two Tosfos. Tosfos first of all says about Bekulu lo menagid Rav. You see that? So it says, Alzeh somchin hachasanim bisman hazeh shedar beveis chamosam. That's why nowadays son-in-laws live in their mother-in-law's house. Even the one that says that that's the conclusion that Rav did not give lashes. But even according to the position that Rav gave lashes, no. Nowadays they do it just to save rent. So therefore, it's clear they're not doing it because they're having an affair. They're doing it because they get free rent. Okay, and the last one is Mishum Pritzusa about Kiddush Bia. I just want to read. So Rabbeinu Tam said the Pritzus was that you need witnesses for the Bia. That was Pritzus. But Tosfos doesn't like that. And if you skip to the last line of Tosfos, he says, Elanira Lari, the Hainu Pritzus Sha'osim Tchilas Kinyanam Bevia. It's like that you started all off with being about sex, and that's really the Pritzus problem. Kiddushin is about entering into the seriousness of the institution, of the commitment, and and it's not all reduced to sex, and it's not something that you just do at a spur of the moment, and that's sort of what Rav was coming to try to control. Okay.
What time is the second?